What's up, friends? Thanks for tuning into this story. If this is your first time here, consider subscribing. It really helps me keep these stories coming. While you're here, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from. I still remember the night my daughter first started digging in the backyard. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Kids get curious, right? They explore, they create little worlds in the dirt. It's harmless. But now, as I sit here and recall those moments, I wonder if I should have been more concerned. If I should have acted sooner. It was late, past 8, when I saw her in the garden, a small figure huddled near the fence. The evening air was thick, heavy with the smell of damp earth, the kind of night where the quiet is almost oppressive, where every sound feels too loud. Even the rustling of the trees sounded wrong, almost like a whisper. I stood by the window, watching her through the glass. She wasn't running around like she usually did. No, she was kneeling by the old oak tree, her little hands gripping something, a small rusted spade. The way she was digging was odd, methodical. She wasn't playing like I initially thought. No, she was digging with purpose. Slowly, almost reverently, as if the earth held something precious beneath it. "Amelia," I called from the window, my voice sharp, trying to pull her back from whatever strange obsession she had found. She didn't look up, just kept digging, her small back hunched in concentration. I pushed open the door and stepped out into the cool night air. The moment I crossed the threshold, I could feel it, the change, the stillness in the yard, the way everything seemed too quiet. The crickets had stopped chirping, the wind had stilled, the world around us held its breath. "Amelia," I called again, softer this time. I tried to shake off the unease creeping up my spine. She was just a child after all, probably just pretending. "Sweetie, what are you doing?" I asked, moving closer. Her small face was hidden by the curls of her brown hair, but I could see her hands scooping the dirt with unnerving precision. The hole she'd made was small but deep, much deeper than I would have expected for such a tiny shovel. I couldn't see what she was burying, but I was starting to feel like I didn't want to know. She looked up then, her eyes wide and glassy as though she hadn't noticed my approach until now. "I'm burying my dolls," she said in that soft, almost dreamy voice of hers. I frowned, kneeling down beside her. "Your dolls?" I asked, unsure why she'd felt the need to bury them out here. We had a toy chest in the living room, one where her dolls should have been resting. She nodded slowly, her gaze not quite meeting mine. "Yes, Mr. Phantom told me to." My heart skipped a beat, a cold shiver running down my back. Mr. Phantom. I knew exactly who she meant, though I wished I didn't. Amelia had been talking about him for weeks now, ever since she'd started playing outside more often. I never thought much of it, chalking it up to an overactive imagination, something that children went through. But hearing her say it so matter-of-factly, hearing her say it as if he were real, it made my stomach twist. "Who's Mr. Phantom?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though I could feel my pulse quickening. She tilted her head as if the question puzzled her. "He's my friend," she said softly, her voice like a gentle whisper in the cold night air. "He told me to bury the dolls tonight. Tomorrow night, I am going to bury our dog. And then, you, Mother." I froze, my breath caught in my chest. "Amelia," I whispered, my voice trembling. "What did you say?" She didn't repeat it. She didn't need to. The words hung in the air between us like smoke, thick and suffocating. I watched her dig, watched her small hands move with the same eerie precision, her eyes wide and unblinking. Something was wrong. Something in the air felt off, as if the earth itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. "Amelia, we're going inside now," I said, standing up quickly. I reached down to pull her away from the hole, but she flinched, a sharp, almost unnatural movement that stopped me in my tracks. Her eyes met mine then, and there was something cold in them, something far too old for a child's gaze. "Mr. Phantom said I have to finish. I can't stop." I stood there, my hands still outstretched, my heart racing. I should have pulled her away. I should have gotten her inside right then. But I didn't. Something held me in place. The unease, the strange weight of the night pressing down on me, made me hesitate. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, louder than the silence around us. "Okay," I said quietly, trying to sound calm, even though my insides felt like they were unraveling. "Just finish quickly, all right? Then we'll go inside." She nodded, her face softening just slightly, as if she were pleased with my response. And so she continued, shoveling the earth, filling the tiny hole with something I still couldn't see. I stepped back, watching her with growing unease. The stillness in the yard deepened, the air grew colder, and somewhere deep within the woods behind our house, I thought I heard a low, faint humming. But when I turned to look, the trees were still, their branches swaying only in the slightest of movements, as if they too were watching. I didn't know it then, but that humming was only the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Amelia, her tiny hands moving in that strange, methodical way, shoveling dirt into the hole. I kept hearing that humming sound, low and distant, like a far-off song. I tried to tell myself it was just the wind or the branches creaking, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I got up early the next morning, the pale light of dawn creeping through the blinds. Amelia was still asleep, tucked in her bed, her face peaceful, innocent. But something about the quiet house, about the stillness of the air, felt wrong. As though the entire world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I couldn't shake the memory of what she'd said. "Tomorrow night, I am going to bury our dog. And then you." I glanced toward the kitchen, where our old dog Buddy lay sprawled out on the floor, snoring softly. He was oblivious to whatever strange ritual Amelia had started. The thought that she might hurt him, let alone bury him, twisted my stomach in knots. I tried to push the thought away, telling myself I was overreacting. Kids say strange things sometimes. Imaginary friends, pretend games, and all that. But there was something about her words, the way she said them, that gnawed at me. The sound of her voice echoed in my mind. Mr. Phantom told me to. I tried to busy myself with chores, doing everything I could to ignore the gnawing feeling in my gut. The house was quiet, too quiet, and I realized I hadn't heard Buddy bark or whimper for hours. I walked to the back door, opened it, and stepped outside. The sun was still low in the sky, casting long shadows across the yard. I expected the usual noises, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves, but there was nothing. It was the same feeling I had gotten last night, standing in the yard watching Amelia dig her hole. The kind of silence that feels unnatural. The kind of silence that makes you feel like you're being watched. I hesitated before stepping onto the grass. The ground around the oak tree was still disturbed, the earth loose and unsettled where Amelia had been digging. But there was something new. A doll. Not just any doll. One of Amelia's favorite ones. The one she'd carried around with her for weeks. The one with the torn dress and missing button eyes. It lay there in the dirt, half buried, its face half hidden in the dark soil. The dirt around it was disturbed, but there was something about the way the doll was positioned. It looked deliberate. I crouched down, my heart pounding in my chest. I reached out to touch it, and as soon as my fingers brushed the fabric of its torn dress, a chill shot through me. The air around me grew colder, the silence even deeper. It felt wrong, like the doll wasn't meant to be there, like something had placed it there. Something or someone. The sound of a door creaking open behind me broke my thoughts. I turned quickly, my pulse racing. Amelia stood in the doorway, her small figure silhouetted against the morning light. "Mommy, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice soft, innocent, as though nothing was out of the ordinary. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breathing. I was just checking the yard, sweetie." She tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "Are you worried about Mr. Phantom?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. My mind scrambled for something to say, but the words wouldn't come. "Mom, it's okay." she said, walking toward me slowly. "Mr. Phantom likes it when I bury things. He says I have to." I stood up quickly, stepping back from the doll, my gaze fixed on her. "Amelia," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "we don't listen to Mr. Phantom. He's just pretend, all right? You don't need to do what he says." She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stared at me, her eyes dark and wide. There was something cold about her gaze, something unsettling. "You don't understand, Mommy," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mr. Phantom is real. He's always been here." A shiver ran down my spine. I had to get her inside. I had to break this, whatever it was, before it went too far. "Amelia," I said again, more firmly this time, "come inside. Now." But she didn't move. She stood there perfectly still like a statue, her gaze locked on mine. And then, as if she hadn't even heard me, she whispered, "Tonight, I'm going to bury Buddy, and then I'm going to bury you, Mommy." The air around me grew colder, and I felt a sharp pang of dread in my chest. My heart hammered in my throat, and for the first time, I felt something that wasn't just fear. It was terror. I tried to take a step forward, to grab her arm and pull her away from the yard, but before I could reach her, she turned and walked back inside, her small feet making no sound against the floorboards. I stood there for a moment, too stunned to move, staring after her. The yard felt like a different place now, darker somehow. The ground, the oak tree, even the wind. It all felt wrong. As I walked back inside, I glanced one last time at the doll lying in the dirt, half buried in the earth, and I wondered if I'd made a mistake by letting it go this far. But it was too late to stop now. Whatever Mr. Phantom was, whatever he had planted in my daughter's mind, it was taking root. And I was afraid of what would happen next. That evening, I sat in the kitchen long after the sun went down, sipping tea I didn't want and listening for sounds I couldn't name. Amelia was in her room, humming to herself, that same slow, eerie melody she'd been humming for the past few nights, the one I was starting to hear in my sleep. Buddy lay at my feet, twitching occasionally in his dreams, whimpering as if something chased him in that murky dog dream world. He hadn't been himself since yesterday. Wouldn't go near the oak tree, wouldn't eat his food. He just watched Amelia, watched her like he was afraid of her. I was starting to understand why. I tried again to convince myself this was just a phase. Kids invent friends all the time. They play weird games. Maybe I'd just overreacted. Maybe Amelia had heard something on the TV or at school that stuck in her head. But in my gut, I knew it wasn't that simple. There was something in our house, not just in the shadows or in Amelia's mind. In it, behind the walls, beneath the floorboards, watching. It was just after 10 when I heard the creaking, soft, deliberate footsteps coming down the hallway. I stood, quietly moving to the kitchen doorway, half expecting to see her standing there with dirt-covered hands again. But it wasn't Amelia. No one was there. Only the faint smell of soil and something else. Old wood, maybe. Or rot. Then I heard it again. A breath. Not mine. Not Amelia's. Something shallow, just on the edge of hearing. A slow inhale, a wet exhale. It came from behind the wall near the pantry. I pressed my ear to the plaster. Nothing. Then a whisper, right at the edge of sound. I didn't catch the words, just the tone, like something was speaking through the wall, not in language but in intent. And I felt, clear as anything, that whatever it was, it didn't like me listening. I stepped back. Nope, no, I was not doing this. I forced a laugh to myself. Losing it, I muttered, completely losing it. But then came the scream. High, piercing, sudden. It was Buddy. I ran through the kitchen, down the hall, following the sound to the back door, flung wide open, wind rushing through it like it had been yanked from its hinges. And there she was, Amelia, standing barefoot in the yard, next to another hole. Buddy lay beside it, panting heavily, whimpering in pain. His paw was bleeding. I could see something had torn into his leg, jagged, deep, like claws or sharp wire had wrapped around it. "Amelia," I shouted, rushing toward her. "What did you do?" She looked up at me, calm, serene, like she hadn't heard the panic in my voice at all. "I tried to bury him," she said softly, "but he fought too much. Mr. Phantom says dogs are harder." My throat went dry. "Baby, why are you doing this?" My voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. "Why would you hurt Buddy?" She blinked slowly, as if considering. "Because Mr. Phantom said he's bad. He barked too much. He said mean things about Mr. Phantom. I couldn't let him do that." She reached into the hole, began gently pushing clumps of earth over the struggling dog. His tail thumped weakly, like he couldn't move enough to resist. I grabbed her, pulled her back. She screamed, this sharp, high, animal-like screech that rattled through my ears and into my bones. She kicked, bit at my arm, her eyes wild and furious. "You're ruining everything," she shrieked. "You're his. He chose you." I carried her inside, her small fists pounding my shoulders, her voice a ragged, incoherent chant of, "He chose you, he chose you, he chose you." I locked the door behind us, deadbolt, chain, even shoved the coat rack in front of it for good measure. I was shaking, holding her tight, not because I was trying to punish her, because I didn't know what else to do. She stopped struggling once we got to her room, went limp. Quiet, too quiet. I laid her down on her bed. She didn't look at me, just stared at the ceiling, lips parted, whispering something too soft to hear. I left the room. I went to the bathroom and washed the blood off my hands. And then I cried. Not because of what had happened, but because, in that moment, I believed her. I believed there really was something whispering to her, something old, something buried. And I think it was starting to whisper to me too. I didn't go back to sleep. I sat in the hallway outside Amelia's door for the rest of the night, watching the shadows stretch and shift with the ticking of the old clock on the wall. I held Buddy in my lap, gently cleaning the wound on his paw, trying to soothe his trembling. He was quieter now, too quiet, the kind of stillness dogs only take on when something scared them down to their bones. Occasionally, I heard Amelia whispering in her sleep. Or maybe she wasn't asleep. Maybe she was talking to him, to Mr. Phantom. I didn't dare open the door. There was something about the way she'd gone quiet that felt less like rest and more like watching, waiting. By morning, I called a vet, told him the dog had gotten into a fight with a raccoon. They patched Buddy up, gave me a strong warning about letting him roam unsupervised. I nodded along, pretending not to feel that creeping dread, that cold certainty that this had nothing to do with wild animals. Back at the house, things were off. Not in the obvious ways. Not at first. The lights began flickering, once, then again, then only when I stood in certain spots, like the hallway outside Amelia's room or by the attic door. We'd lived in that house for almost 6 years. I knew every creak, every pipe, every old board that moaned when you stepped on it wrong. But lately it felt like the house had shifted. Like there were parts I didn't know anymore. Hallways that felt longer, rooms that felt colder, spaces that hummed when I passed them just quiet enough that I thought maybe it was in my head. It wasn't. That afternoon, while Amelia napped, I went into her room. Not to snoop, not exactly. I just needed to understand what she was caught up in, needed to see if there was something, anything, that could explain what she was seeing, what she was hearing. Her room was neat, too neat. Amelia wasn't a messy child, but this was arranged. Her remaining dolls sat in a perfect semicircle on the floor, all facing the closet. They didn't look like toys anymore, more like witnesses. There was something drawn on the inside of her closet door. I opened it slowly, the hinges groaning, and there it was. A shape scrawled in red crayon, long, looping strokes that curved and twisted like a spiral caught in a scream. Beneath it, a word repeated over and over again, written in uneven, trembling letters. Phantom. I stared at it, heart thudding so loud I could barely hear myself think. That's when I noticed the floorboards. One of them was loose. I crouched, pried it up, hands shaking. Underneath was a small space, a crawl cavity between the foundation and the floor. Something nestled there in the dust and spider webs. A small cloth figure, handmade, stitched from Amelia's pajamas, button eyes, stuffed with what looked like clippings of her hair. My stomach churned. There was a second figure too, bigger, rougher, with a crude red X stitched where the mouth should be. No buttons, no eyes. I reached for it, hesitated. And the second I touched the cloth, I heard it. A voice. Not out loud, not in the room. In my head. A whisper that didn't use words, but still spoke. Something cold, patient, hungry. I dropped the doll, slammed the floorboard back into place. Behind me, the closet door creaked closed. I spun around. Nothing there. Just those dolls, still watching, still waiting. That night, Amelia was quiet at dinner. She didn't speak, didn't eat, just sat there, slowly turning her fork in circles on the plate. After a while, I asked, "Do you still hear him?" She paused, then nodded. "He's in the house now," she whispered. "He likes it here." I tried to keep my voice calm, steady. "What does he want, Amelia?" She didn't answer right away. Then, in the softest, most matter-of-fact voice I've ever heard, she said, "He wants us to be quiet. He says we're too loud inside our skins." I stared at her, unsure if I was about to cry or scream. She looked up at me. Her eyes were different now, darker somehow, less childlike. "He's almost done with the wall," she said. "Then he won't need to whisper anymore." I didn't ask which wall. I didn't want to know. That night, long after she'd gone to bed, I sat alone in the living room with every light on. Buddy curled against my leg like he was trying to disappear into me. I could feel the house breathing. The walls felt warmer, thicker, like something behind them was pressing forward, waiting to push through. Then, from the far end of the hallway, I heard a voice. Not a whisper this time. Clear, low, almost polite. It said, "You'll understand soon, Mother." I didn't move, didn't breathe. And somewhere inside the wall, I swear to God, something knocked. I didn't sleep that night, not even a little. I sat upright on the living room couch. Buddy curled beside me like a trembling heartbeat and stared at the hallway. At the space where I'd heard the voice, where the wall had knocked back. Every creak of the house felt louder now. Every shifting board or groan in the pipes made my skin crawl. I used to feel safe in my own home. Now it felt like the house itself was turning against me. I finally stood just after 4 in the morning, bleary-eyed and shaking, and walked to the hallway with a flashlight. The silence stretched and pulsed around me, thicker than air, like I'd stepped underwater. I pressed my hand to the wall where I'd heard the knock. It was warm. No, not warm. Breathing. Just faintly, as if the wall itself had a heartbeat I couldn't quite match to my own. I walked back to the kitchen, trying to tell myself it was just panic, stress, sleep deprivation. I wasn't thinking clearly. That had to be it. But then I remembered something stupid. The house plans. I'd found them once when we moved in, tucked in a manila envelope behind the fuse box. I don't know why I thought of them now, but something inside me said, "Look." So I did. I pried open the little panel, pulled out the dusty envelope, and laid the blueprints out on the kitchen table under the too sully a light. The house was a simple shape, 3 bedrooms, 1 main hallway, kitchen, living room. Everything was clean, symmetrical, easy to read. Except there was a space, a dead zone, between Amelia's room and the hallway closet. A rectangle maybe 6 feet long and 4 feet wide. It wasn't marked for plumbing or insulation. It wasn't labeled at all. Just there, a room that wasn't supposed to exist. I stood slowly, walked down the hallway again, heart racing now. I tapped the walls one by one. Solid, hollow, solid, hollow again. I knocked on the space that should have been empty. And this time, I didn't imagine it. There was an answer. 3 sharp taps. Then silence. Then, from Amelia's room, a laugh, soft and sleep-thick. Like she was dreaming. I backed away, too afraid to wake her, too afraid to ask what she'd dreamed of, or who had made her laugh like that. The next morning, I drove her to her grandmother's house. I didn't give a reason, just said we needed a break, some time apart. My mother didn't question it. She could tell something was wrong just by looking at me. "You look like you haven't slept in a week," she said, pulling Amelia gently into her arms. I didn't correct her. It had been longer. Back at the house, I gathered tools: hammer, crowbar, utility knife. I'd never done anything like this before, but I didn't care. I had to know. I had to see what was behind that wall. I had to face whatever was hiding in the dead space of my own home. I cleared the hallway, took a breath, then started peeling away the drywall. It came off in long shivering strips, like skin that didn't want to be removed. Beneath it, the wood was warped, discolored, rotten in strange spirals, like the tree rings of something ancient and diseased. I kept going. The deeper I dug, the colder the air grew, not just cooler, colder, like I was opening a doorway to some place that had never known sunlight. Finally, after peeling back the last layer, I found it. A door, small, narrow, made of wood that wasn't quite wood, too smooth, too dark, no handle, just a vertical slit like a mouth stitched shut. And carved into it, barely visible unless you leaned close, that spiral symbol, the one Amelia had drawn in her closet. The one I hadn't been able to stop seeing in the corner of my vision ever since. I pressed my fingers against it, half expecting the door to disappear, or shock me, or burn. It did none of those things. It opened, no resistance, no creak, just a slow inward swing that revealed absolute darkness. The air that spilled out was thick, damp, old. The flashlight flickered once, then steadied, and I saw what lay beyond. A room. Cramped, dusty, walls covered in more symbols, all of them drawn in charcoal or blood or something older. In the center, a small mound of dirt, fresh, as if someone had just dug it. A little shovel sat next to it, one of Amelia's. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to run, to tear the house down board by board. But I didn't move. Because carved into the wall above the mound was a sentence. Shaky, childlike, but unmistakable. "This is where she'll put you." My skin went cold. Something moved behind me, just a brush of air, a whisper, a weight, and then a hand on my shoulder. I spun around, flashlight flailing. Nothing but. On the wall behind me, freshly etched into the wood in long, jagged strokes. "Not yet." I sealed the door back up that night, not just shut it, but barricaded it. Nailed the drywall back over it, hammered wooden planks across the hallway for good measure. It wasn't elegant, and it sure as hell wasn't professional, but it was the best I could do. I needed it gone. Out of sight, out of reach. Even though I knew it was still there. That wasn't the kind of thing you could unknow. That sentence, "This is where she'll put you," kept playing in my head, over and over, like a whisper caught between my ears. And the worst part, I believed it. I believed it like I believed the sun would rise in the morning. I started locking every door and window at night. I left lights on. I slept with Buddy at the foot of my bed like some pathetic talisman against the dark. He didn't bark anymore. He didn't growl. He just stared at the hallway, trembling, like he was waiting for the house to decide it was hungry again. Amelia stayed at my mother's for the rest of the week. I called every day. She was fine, happy even, which made it worse. It was like the farther she got from the house, the more she forgot about the digging, the dolls, the whispering thing in the walls. But me, I couldn't forget, and I couldn't stop hearing them. It started with dreams. I'd wake up gasping, heart racing, the name Mr. Phantom ringing in my ears like a bell someone had struck too hard. The dreams were always the same. Black rooms, narrow hallways, walls that breathed and bled and whispered. But soon, it wasn't just dreams. I started hearing them when I was awake. A soft voice, polite, almost soothing, the way a stranger on a park bench might speak to you if they wanted to lull you into a false sense of safety before doing something awful. He said things like, "She's perfect, your girl. So open, so willing. The dolls were practice, the dog was next, you were always the last gift. And sometimes, she loved you once." There was something deliberate in the way he said that, like it was meant to hurt. It did. I tried to ignore it. I tried music, white noise, sleeping pills. Nothing helped. He was inside the walls, inside me. The spiral symbol showed up again too, on the mirror, in condensation on the bathroom tile, even traced in dust on the rear window of my car. I'd wipe it away, only to find it again the next day, sharper, clearer. And then, one morning my phone rang. It was my mom. Her voice was tight, uneasy. "Something's wrong with Amelia." My blood ran cold. "She's been talking in her sleep again," she said. "Says she misses Buddy. Says he's lonely now." That wasn't what scared me. What scared me was what she said next. She keeps saying she needs to come home, that he wants her back. I told my mom to keep her, not to bring her back, no matter what she said. I was halfway through explaining when the call cut out. Not dropped, just stopped. Dead air. I tried calling back, over and over. Nothing. The spiral symbol was now carved into my bedroom wall. I hadn't done it. I would have remembered. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat on the floor of Amelia's empty room, Buddy pressed tight to my side, flashlight in hand. The whispering started around midnight. Long, slow syllables in a voice I didn't recognize but somehow did. And then, through the thin wall beside me came scratching. Like fingernails on wood. I pressed my ear to the plaster. "She's ready now." My skin went numb. I felt it in the pit of my stomach, like a wire being slowly threaded through my spine. He was going to take her. And I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to admit until now. He didn't want to hurt me, not really. I was just a stepping stone. It was Amelia he wanted all along. I stood up, grabbed my keys, told Buddy to stay, and I drove fast and blind through the fog-heavy night toward my mother's house, headlights flickering like the car was struggling to push through the dark. The road stretched out forever, and somewhere behind me, or maybe ahead, I could swear I heard digging. By the time I reached my mother's house, it was well past 3 a.m. The porch light was off, which was odd. Mom always left it on for Amelia, even if she was just coming in from the backyard. The house looked too still, like a photograph instead of a place people actually lived in. I parked, not even bothering to kill the headlights, and sprinted up the steps. The door was unlocked. Inside the house was quiet. No TV, no low hum of the refrigerator, just silence. And something thicker than silence, a tension, like the house was waiting. I called for Mom, no answer. Then I called for Amelia. A pause. Then, faintly, from outside, "Mommy?" I froze. Her voice was too calm, too sweet. I turned slowly and walked to the back door, already knowing what I'd see before I pulled back the curtain. Amelia, standing barefoot in the middle of the yard. She was wearing her favorite pajamas, yellow with faded stars on them, the ones I'd seen stitched into that horrible doll, and in her hand was a shovel, one of the small plastic ones she used to dig holes in her garden. I stepped outside. The grass was wet with dew, but there were patches of dry earth turned over, dark and soft like fresh graves. I counted 3 of them. 3 neat, shallow holes, maybe 2 feet deep. Amelia stood beside the 4th, still digging. "Amelia," I whispered, "come here, baby." She looked up at me, smiled. Not wide, just enough to chill my blood. "He's almost ready," she said softly. "He says we'll all fit this time." I took a step forward. "Who's he, sweetheart?" She tilted her head. "You know who?" I knelt slowly, careful not to spook her. Her eyes were different again, glassy, like she was looking through me instead of at me. "I don't want to play this game anymore," I told her. "We're going to go inside. We're going to be okay." She lowered the shovel. For a second I thought maybe, just maybe, she was listening. Then she whispered, "Behind you." I didn't turn. I didn't have to. I felt it, the presence. Close, leaning in, a breath that wasn't mine brushing the back of my neck. And in my head a voice, not loud, not even clear, just a low hum of satisfaction. "You've brought her home." I snatched Amelia up in one motion, clutched her tight to my chest and ran. She screamed, shrill and sudden, and thrashed against me, digging her nails into my arms, shrieking things that weren't in her voice. Words I didn't understand, words that sounded older than English. The air around me thickened. The shadows stretched. And then I saw my mother, lying on the floor of the living room, eyes open, unblinking, her face frozen in shock. Or terror. There was no blood, no wounds. Just stillness, like something had reached inside her and turned her off. I screamed, but it came out as a whisper. My throat didn't work the way it should. It was like I was underwater again. I ran with Amelia out to the car, shoved her into the passenger seat, and locked the doors. She sat there silently now, watching me. Calm again, her eyes blank. "Where's Buddy?" she asked softly. "I left him at the house." She nodded. "He's digging too." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My mind was screaming, heart racing so loud I thought it might rupture. I started the engine and drove. No idea where I was going. Just away. I ended up at a motel on the edge of town. One of those places with flickering neon signs and rooms that smelled faintly of mildew and bleach. I paid in cash. Didn't give a name. Inside the room, Amelia curled up on the bed and fell asleep instantly, like nothing had happened. I sat at the small table in the corner, staring at her, watching for anything, any movement, any change. But she just slept. She looked like my daughter again. Except for the dirt under her fingernails and the faint spiral she'd drawn on the bedsheet with her finger. I got up, walked into the bathroom, and locked the door. I stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes were sunken, skin pale and waxy. I barely recognized the face looking back at me. And then, without moving a muscle, I saw myself smile. Not a twitch of my lips, not a conscious act, just a smile. The reflection didn't match me. And then it whispered, "She's ready, Mother. Are you?" I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that reflection, my face with his smile, a grin that felt too wide, too knowing. I thought maybe I'd hallucinated it, cracked under pressure. But the spiral Amelia had drawn on the bedsheet was still there in the morning, perfect and deliberate, not something done in sleep. She was still curled up under the blanket, breathing slow and even, like none of it had ever happened. I sat in the plastic motel chair and watched the sun rise through the dusty window, thinking about the blueprints. The hidden room, the dirt, the doll that looked like me, my mother's frozen eyes. Thinking about the voice, Mr. Phantom. Every time I thought the name, it came with a feeling, like cold fingers dragging across my scalp. Not pain, something worse. Recognition. Like he'd always been there, waiting for someone like Amelia, waiting for someone like me. She stirred around 7:30 a.m., rubbing her eyes. The first thing she said was, "Did he come visit you too?" I swallowed hard. "Who?" "You know." A little shrug. "Mr. Phantom." She yawned, like it was nothing more than a weird dream she'd had. I didn't answer. I took her to a diner 2 towns over, hoping a change of scenery might break whatever was happening. She was normal again, talking about school, about how much she missed her favorite teddy bear, about pancakes shaped like cats, like everything that had happened had been wiped clean from her memory. She still had the dirt under her nails, still wore that strange, gentle smile sometimes, especially when she thought I wasn't looking. After breakfast, I tried something I hadn't dared before. I drove back to the house, back to where it started. I don't know why. Some part of me thought if I could just see it again, it might make sense. That maybe it would vanish under daylight, like a nightmare that couldn't survive the morning. But when I pulled into the driveway, I saw it instantly. The front door was wide open, and Buddy was sitting on the porch. His fur was matted, his eyes milky, but he was alive. I stepped out of the car slowly. He didn't run to me, didn't bark, just watched. Like he was waiting, Amelia stayed in the car. Inside, the house was cold, still, and yet not empty. The air felt like it was pressing in from all sides, heavy with something unspoken, something buried. The hallway was untouched, no sign of the door I'd uncovered. But the wall, it breathed. I could hear it, soft, rhythmic, alive. I placed my hand on the drywall. It was warm again, just like before. And then, without knocking, I heard it. I heard it. Knock, knock, knock from the other side, and then, "It's time." The drywall began to bulge, slowly, as if something behind it was pressing forward. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. And then I saw her. Amelia, standing in the hallway, smiling. Only, not quite her. Her eyes were all wrong. Too dark, too deep. Like something was wearing her skin, like a costume. "Mommy," she whispered, "you forgot your place." I couldn't speak, couldn't move. She reached out and touched the wall. And it split, like wet paper. Inside was the room. The spiral-covered walls, the smell of wet earth, and the shallow graves. Only now, they weren't empty. Each mound was occupied. A doll, a dog, a woman. All made of flesh and dirt and grinning straw hair. And next to them, a fourth hole, waiting, my size. "I'm sorry," Amelia said. "He promised you wouldn't feel anything." And behind her, I saw him, or I saw his shadow. No shape, just an absence of light that bled across the hallway like ink. A whisper that slithered into my ears. "Thank you for raising her so well." Then hands like roots, like tendrils, grabbing, pulling. The last thing I saw was Amelia, watching, smiling and humming, just like the first night I found her digging. I don't know how long I've been down here. There's no time, no light, only earth, and the sound of someone else digging. Maybe you've heard him too. A whisper through the walls at night. A shadow beneath your bed. A child humming an old tune, bearing her toys. If she starts digging near your window, don't wait. Don't ask. Don't listen when she says. Phantom says, you're next. Thank you for watching this story. If you're new, please subscribe, like the video, and share it. Let us know your thoughts about this story in the comments.